What's up guys, it's your boy Corey Lanier here, and I've realized that I've made all these videos about the Lumix G7, but I've never told you guys what are some of the best settings that you guys can have to get the best video quality out of this camera. I don't know why, I guess the idea of doing that has just escaped me. So today I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I cover that so we can get that out the way. So here are 4 tips on getting the best settings that you can out of this camera, whether if you want it to be cinematic or if you just even want or if you just want good quality. If you keep watching this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly what those settings are. So the very first setting that you want to have to make sure you have the best quality you can on the Lumix G7, which is what you guys are watching me on right now, is you want to make sure you have a low aperture. A low aperture pretty much just controls how big that hole is inside the camera that you're actually looking through to see me right now. On the Lumix G7, when you're using the kit lens, the lowest the aperture can go to is 3.5. I have another lens, which is like the 20mm and also the 25mm. They also let me go down to a 1.7 aperture. And all that really does is the lower that number is, the wider that hole is. And when the hole is wider, the background is more blurry. That's what causes that blurry background that makes people be like, oh man, that's really sharp, or it looks really good. It's just because I'm able to separate myself from what you see in the background. And the further the background is, the blurrier it looks. The whole point is you want to have a low aperture, so a 3.5, if you have the kit lens, is what you want to have it set to. Or if you have another lens that can go wider than that, set it to as low as that number can go. Okay, I'm about to get some waffles because I'm really hungry right now. But here's the second tip for you guys if you want to have some really dope video on your Lumix G7, or really these tips can apply to just about any camera. Depending on what you use, you'll see the same settings on wherever you're going. But that setting is your shutter speed. Now when it comes to the shutter speed, what you want is you want to have this like natural blur. If you see my hand moving, it's just like a natural looking type of blur, and that's because I'm following what's known as the 180-degree rule. The 180-degree rule just basically means that whatever your frame rate is when it comes to shooting your video, you want to make sure that your shutter speed is double that number. So right now I'm shooting this video at 60 frames per second. I actually had someone not too long ago ask me in the comments what frame rate I usually shoot at, and right now it's 60 frames per second. The more professional frame rate to use is 24 frames per second whenever you're talking to someone. But if you stick to the 180-degree rule, it still will give you a natural blur if you crank up your shutter speed to what it should be. So to make it clear, if you're shooting and your frame rate is 24 frames per second, then your shutter speed needs to be about 48 or 50. If you are shooting where your frame rate is 30 frames per second, then your shutter speed should be about 1/60th of a second. By the way, shutter speed is usually measured in a fraction of a second, so like 1/60th or 100th or so on. But if you're also using a cinema camera, it might measure a shutter angle, which the shutter angle should just be 180, and then the camera will automatically calculate what that shutter speed is. That's what I do when I use my Blackmagic to shoot videos. But since I'm shooting at 60 frames per second right now, which is really good for like slow motion, if I want to be able to take slow motion video out of this later, then my shutter speed is cranked to about 120th of a second or somewhere around there, just so I can get that natural blur. Now I'm about to get some natural egos. Okay guys, so another tip, which is like, I think it's my 3rd tip now. We're on tip number 3, right? Yeah. The 3rd tip is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this kitchen isn't really that bright. It's kind of dark. So what you really want to do is you want to make sure that your ISO, which is another thing in your camera, right? ISO is just basically just controls how sensitive the camera is on the inside, and you don't want your camera to be overly sensitive, but you want it to be sensitive enough to where things don't look too dark. And in this kitchen with the light off and the only thing I have is the light coming through the window, I have my ISO up to 1600 right now, which is usually the highest I like to go, but if I have to, I'll go higher than that. I really want these egos right now. Okay, so just to be clear, in case I confuse you, you want to make sure your ISO is as low as possible. Right now, I'm on 1600, but if I was to go any lower, things would be too dark. But if it's a bright sunny day and you're outside, you want to try to have your ISO at 100, because I think that's about as low as it can go on the Lumix G7. So ISO 100. And if you guys have watched any of my other videos, you might have heard some of these same tips already when I'm talking about photography. But photography and videography, I mean, they are pretty similar. It's just that when we're talking about frame rate, you have to understand that 180-degree rule that I already told you about. Okay, since I'm still waiting on my ego, oh, there they go. Since I was still waiting on my egos, here's another tip when it comes to video that will definitely make your video awesome and just help you stand out from the crowd, and that is your color profile. you want to make sure that you're shooting on the flattest color profile possible. Now there is a color profile in Lumix G7 that is, I think, already like pre-programmed. It's called like CNET, or I forgot what it's called, but I'll probably just put it here. Now there is a pretty flat color profile that's already pre-programmed in the Lumix G7, but I kind of already have my own custom one that I made, and I'll share those settings with you probably, I don't know, maybe as a screenshot, or maybe I just have to write them down. Sorry guys for being interrupted, but yeah, I'm going to share with you my custom color profile that I use in the description. Hopefully you guys will like it, and maybe you can start applying it to your videos, and you can start, these egos are like calling my name, and you can start having some really cool videos as well. Now here's the coolest thing about having a flat color profile. Because of the fact that my camera is, you know, it's low in saturation, low in contrast and stuff like that, what it's doing is it's able to pick up and reserve more details in the shadows and in the highlights, which in turn makes it a lot easier for me to do color correction or just giving a creative color feel to my videos. Whenever you're recording on your camera's default settings and you already have like a lot of saturation and a lot of contrast, it's hard for you to go back and kind of tweak it a little bit to give it your own personal feeling. Now, in the beginning, you might not really care about that, but as you go along and grow as a creator, you're gonna want to kind of like have your own type of vibe, your own type of like look and feel to your videos. Those are pretty much the best settings that you can have for your Lumix G7. Now I know there's a couple other creators out there who give you their settings and stuff like that, but just remember, it's all up to your own perception of what you like. If you like their videos and you see how their videos come out, then they give you their best settings. If you like my videos and you like how they come out, I'm giving you guys my settings, and we can just go from there. That's how I grew. I learned on YouTube just like how you guys are watching my videos and learning on YouTube through my videos. I came up watching like Peter McKinnon and Ben TK, even his brother Jamie TK. These guys are incredible storytellers, videographers. Shout out to Carl Shakur, if you haven't heard of those guys yet. Aiden Robbins. There's a lot of people that I watched, and now I'm getting to a point where I realize I know a lot of stuff, and I should probably pay it forward, which is the same way these guys did to grow. And I just want to give you guys golden nuggets because it helps me grow, and it also at the same time, I enjoy this. I'm really starting to have fun teaching you guys some things, and that's why I'm getting back to the teaching part. So until then, I hope you guys learned something. If you did learn something, please like, comment, and if you really like it, subscribe. Maybe you want to watch a few more videos before you actually decide to subscribe. I totally understand, that's a big commitment. At the minimum, if you could just like the video, that would help a lot. But until then, I'm about to go ahead and eat this Eggo that's probably getting cold on me. I might have to warm it back up. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I mean, like, I'm really hungry. Like, really hungry. Oh, by the way, if you guys like any of my other videos, or you're interested in seeing any other videos, you can click now. I think they should be popping up somewhere up in here, or probably over my face. You probably can't even really see me right now. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't see my face anyway, because I'm eating a waffle. I was about to say a Wego. An Eggo waffle. All right. Yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it, coach.